Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that, well, it's captivated humanity for centuries. Often misunderstood, but incredibly powerful. Seduction.
Hmm.
Our sources for this deep dive draw heavily from Robert Greene's The Art of Seduction. We've also got some fascinating historical and literary accounts mixed in.
Yeah, and what's really compelling, I think, about these sources is how they redefine seduction. It's not just, romantic trickery or simply physical attraction.
Right.
Instead, it emerges as this really sophisticated art form, almost a profound psychological game, a subtle means of power, of persuasion.
Game, yeah.
It's about understanding and playing on the human mind,
Yeah.
stimulating fantasies, even fulfilling desires people often don't realize they possess.
Absolutely. And our mission today is, well, to distill the most potent insights from all this material. We'll explore the underlying psychology, uncover some surprising historical examples, and break down specific techniques. By the end of this deep dive, you'll gain, hopefully, a richer understanding of how influence operates, whether that's in personal relationships or leadership or even, the broader political landscape.
Hmm.
It's about much more than mere attraction. It's really about grasping the deeper currents of human nature.
Definitely.
So let's begin by exploring the very nature of seduction, as our sources describe it. Historically, we encounter figures like Cleopatra, King David, Julius Caesar, Mark Antony, King Fuchai.
A real cast of characters.
Exactly. And what immediately stands out is how individuals, particularly women who often faced significant, let's say, physical or political limitations, transform these into formidable psychological power.
That's a key point. Cleopatra, for instance, wielded what's described as a kind of feminine version of warfare to consolidate an empire. Not direct fighting, but something else entirely.
Something else, yeah.
That's precisely it. The sources make this crucial distinction. These figures rarely relied on overt force. Instead, they worked on the mind first, crafting elaborate illusions, stimulating fantasies,
Right.
and creating this powerful dynamic of both hope and despair. That mix could reduce even powerful men to what the sources actually call slaves.
Slaves. Strong word.
It is, and it points to this cunning, indirect form of power that completely bypasses brute strength.
And it really taps into something universal in the human experience, doesn't it? Seducers in this framework are described as providers of pleasure, almost like bees that gather pollen.
It's a lovely metaphor.
The core idea seems to be that as adults, we often feel disconnected from, a simpler world of play and uninhibited joy. We're burdened by responsibilities.
Hmm.
Life gets serious.
And the seducer offers this tantalizing escape, fulfilling a deep human longing to be overwhelmed, to just let go of usual stubbornness. This is a really profound insight from the sources, I think. They suggest that sometimes resistance to us is a way of saying, please seduce me.
Wow. So resistance isn't always resistance.
Not necessarily, no. The sheer promise of pleasure can make someone drop their guard, open up, and become weak to the touch. It speaks to an almost unconscious desire for surrender, maybe.
That makes sense. And Nietzsche comes into this too, right?
Right. Friedrich Nietzsche famously observed, whatever is done from love always occurs beyond good and evil. It hints at the way seduction kind of transcends conventional morality in its pursuit of desire.
Okay. Beyond good and evil. So let's explore some of the distinct types of seducers then. These archetypes our sources meticulously lay out, starting with perhaps the most iconic, the siren.
Ah, the siren.
This archetype's primary instrument, according to the material, is the physical presence itself. It acts like a powerful decoy, bypassing rational thought and just directly engaging emotion.
And it's key to remember, like you said, this isn't necessarily about conventional beauty.
No.
No. Neither Cleopatra nor Marilyn Monroe, two of history's most potent sirens, were known for, say, perfectly symmetrical faces. Their power came from an overall impression that is both distracting and alluring, a kind of captivating aura rather than just simple good looks.
An aura. Okay. Marilyn Monroe is a perfect example, isn't she?
Absolutely.
She consciously cultivated a physical presence that, well, the source says, reeked of sex. Yet her potent allure also came from something deeper, maybe unconscious, her genuine need for affection.
Right. That vulnerability.
Yeah, it made her seem vulnerable and innocent, which paradoxically just intensified her excitement for men.
And Cleopatra, similarly, mastered the art of exotic pleasures. She shrewdly indulged Mark Antony's weaknesses, his gambling, his love for extravagant parties, and ultimately, the sources say, turned him into her slave.
Using his own desires against him, in a way.
Precisely.
Okay, shifting gears to a very different type of allure, we find the rake.
The rake, yes, a classic.
This archetype is defined by an uncontrollable libido, pursuing women with this ardent, almost audacious desire, seemingly brave of all obstacles.
Fearless pursuit.
Interestingly, though, despite their often rakish pasts, they tend not to inspire fear because they're seen as slaves to all women, driven purely by passion.
Yeah, the rake's appeal really lies in their uninhibited nature. Think of someone like Lord Byron.
Oh, definitely.
He famously disregarded convention. His scandalous affair with his half-sister, even his cruelty to his wives, only seemed to enhance his desirability.
It's counterintuitive, isn't it?
It is, but it resonated deeply with a repressed side in women, apparently, offering a kind of vicarious freedom from societal virtue. It's about someone who dares to pursue desire openly, and that sparks a similar freedom in others.
Like giving permission. Errol Flynn had this remarkable ability too, didn't he? To seemingly return women to a natural state where desire and sex felt, I don't know, uninhibited.
Right. His sheer confidence and ease, that kind of lightness of spirit, it had a profoundly captivating effect on his targets.
And then there's the more refined version, the aesthetic rake, like Duke Ellington.
Ah, Ellington, yes.
He satisfied his obsession with women through endless variety, keeping them perpetually hanging and hoping, and even managed to make separation feel like an elegant experience. Quite the skill.
Absolutely. Graceful even in detachment.
Okay. Next up, we have the ideal lover.
Yeah, this was different.
Very different. This archetype doesn't primarily appeal to the physical. Instead, they tap into people's higher selves, their unrealized ideals, that latent sense of greatness they believe lies within.
It's about making someone feel elevated, almost spiritual, by mirroring their aspirations. Less about the body, more about the soul, perhaps.
Madame de Pompadour demonstrated this masterfully with Louis XV, didn't she?
She really did. He was apparently plagued by an inferiority complex.
Right.
But she saw a great man yearning to come out. She skillfully cured his boredom, not with lavish gifts, but with fantasies and constant suspense. And then she directly appealed to his crushed ideals, making him feel elevated and, crucially, irreplaceable.
Irreplaceable. That's key. John F. Kennedy, too, seems to fit this mold.
Yes, the sources point to him. He consciously projected this sense of romance and aspiration, creating that iconic Camelot aura.
Camelot, yeah.
He appealed to America's lost ideals, the pioneer spirit through the new frontier imagery, the space race, the Peace Corps.
Powerful stuff.
Incredibly effective at uniting a divided nation, evoking this powerful, almost wistful, emotional response. It's about offering a vision of what could be.
And the chivalrous knight is another facet of this ideal lover, right?
Exactly. Think of the troubadour tradition. A knight offering absolute devotion to a lady, undergoing trials, suffering to prove his love.
Very romantic.
And immensely appealing because it speaks directly to a person's vanity, makes them feel uniquely special. Similarly, Madame Récamier understood Chateaubriand's obsession with his lost youth. She mirrored his spirit, embodied an innocent, noble, kind ideal.
Wow.
She even subtly took him to places that evoked childhood memories, connecting with his deeper, unfulfilled longings. It's very targeted.
That's incredibly insightful. Okay, moving on to a truly fascinating archetype, the dandy.
Ah, the dandy. Always intriguing.
These individuals are described as fluid, ambiguous. They consciously create their own startling persona, defying easy categorization. They often playfully blend masculinity and femininity.
Yes, hinting at this freedom from conventional roles that maybe many people secretly desire for themselves.
So if the dandy plays with ambiguity, how exactly does that startling persona disarm someone? Is it just unpredictability?
Well, it's precisely that ambiguity that makes them so intriguing and disarming, I think. They defy expectations,
Yeah.
and that somehow frees the target's own hidden desires for breaking from conventional roles. Rudolph Valentino, for instance.
The silent film star.
That's him. He's described as a feminine dandy. He captivated women with a familiar, pleasing, graceful presence, mirroring feminine psychology, his attention to appearance, his sensitivity, even coquettishness. But critically, he retained a hint of male cruelty. That combination disarmed them, made them vulnerable for a bold, masculine move. His enigmatic image, it still captivates today.
A hint of cruelty.
Hmm.
Interesting. And the opposite side of that coin is exemplified by Lou Salome, the masculine dandy.
Exactly. She neutralized men's power by using their own weapons, retaining independence, self-possession, while still being passionate.
How did that work?
Well, the sources explain that men are intrigued, aroused, and ultimately disarmed by women who don't completely give of themselves. It's a powerful inversion of traditional roles, holding something back.
Fascinating. Okay, our final archetype, the natural.
The natural, yes, seems almost effortless for them.
These are individuals who seem to retain childish traits, a spirit of unself-consciousness, a freedom from adult inhibitions. This quality is described as uncanny and marvelous.
Because it's so rare, right?
Okay.
And refreshing in the often rigid adult world.
Think of Charlie Chaplin's iconic tramp
Or it's a
character.
perfect example.
His pathetic naivete, the way he saw the world through a child's eyes, it resonated incredibly deeply with audiences.
Mm.
Chaplin physically positioned himself as a helpless infant against adult bullies. And intriguingly, his real life mirrored this character. He mistrusted the adult world, preferred the company of the young. It's that unforced innocence that draws people in.
And then there's someone like Krishnamurti. He radiated this profound sense of enlightenment, described as having a brightness filling the space and intrinsic authority.
Like a spiritual leader.
Exactly. One writer even compared listening to him to listening to the discourse of the Buddha. It's that natural, unforced presence, free from pretense, that truly disarms and captivates.
So we've explored these distinct archetypes, the dazzling siren, the audacious rake, the uplifting ideal lover, the ambiguous dandy, the innocent natural. What's clear is that seduction isn't, well, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Not at all. It's about understanding and leveraging specific psychological needs, vulnerabilities, desires.
Okay, now let's turn our attention to the actual process of seduction. The sources meticulously break it down into distinct phases and techniques. Phase 1 is all about separation, stirring initial interest and desire.
Right. The core goal here is to draw the target away from their everyday world, their anxieties, and basically fill their mind with thoughts of you.
How do you even start?
Well, it starts with choosing the right target. Look for those who are bored, maybe disappointed dreamers, or even those analytical professor types who secretly long for pure physicality. The advice is to avoid those who are too much like your own type.
Why is that?
Familiarity breeds contempt, perhaps. Or maybe it's harder to create mystery.
Okay, so you have your target, then what?
Okay.
Indirect approach.
Exactly. Create a false sense of security. Approach indirectly. Johannes, the seducer in Kierkegaard's The Seducer's Diary, initially acted polite and shy, subtly making Cordelia wish he were less reserved, drawing her in that way. Duke Ellington, similarly, would use what seems like banal conversation to subtly hypnotize his listeners, amplifying his more subtle suggestions later on. It's about lulling them.
Once you've piqued their interest, the next step is to send mixed signals. Keep them guessing.
Pretty much. Keep targets slightly off balance with sudden mood changes or capricious behavior. This apparently creates a certain respect and prevents them from truly seeing through your intentions.
And triangulation, making yourself seem desired by others.
It's a powerful one. Appear to be an object of desire by creating a triangle. People are naturally drawn to those desired by others. Vanity, maybe a bit of greed.
Wanting what others have.
Exactly. Surround yourself with admirers or hint at past conquests. Eva Perón's European tour, for instance, made Argentines value her even more upon her return. She became this highly desired woman of destiny in the eyes of the world. Absence and external validation made her more valuable.
You also need to create a need within the target, right? Stirring discontent.
Yes, make them acutely aware of the adventure and romance they might be missing, hinting that you can uniquely fill this emptiness. The sources note, an increase of this spirit of discontent renders a person especially susceptible to falling in love.
Makes sense. Find the gap and offer to fill it.
And to deepen the effect, you have to master the art of insinuation.
Insinuation. How does that work?
Dropping subtle hints, often disguised in seemingly banal remarks. They can subtly jab at insecurities or desires, but the target doesn't remember where the thought came from. It bypasses conscious resistance, speaks directly to the unconscious. Madame de T from No Tomorrow was apparently a master of this, almost invisible manipulation.
Wow. And then there's entering their spirit, mirroring them.
Exactly. Mirroring their values, adapting to their moods, their tastes. This is especially charming, the sources say, if you're an outsider. It shows a conscious choice to connect, not just a shared background. Saltykov, for example, successfully befriended Catherine the Great by understanding her profound loneliness and genuinely sharing her intellectual interests. He met her where she was.
That feels more genuine in a way.
It can seem that way, which is part of its power. Finally, in this initial phase, you create temptation. offer a tantalizing glimpse of pleasures to come.
Just a glimpse.
Yes, hint at forbidden and guilty pleasures or an adventure. But the key is to keep it wonderfully vague. Let their minds do the rest and build the fantasy. Napoleon Bonaparte apparently enveloped a German officer in a romantic adventure, making it a shared, captivating fantasy world.
Okay, so interest is stirred, desire is taking root. Now we move into phase two, lead astray, creating pleasure and confusion.
Right. The ultimate goal here is to keep the target perpetually emotional and disoriented, making retreat seem impossible or undesirable.
How do you maintain that?
Keep him in suspense. Offer pleasant surprises, but also strategically alternate harshness and kindness. That push and pull keeps him off balance, constantly craving your approval and attention.
Emotional roller coaster.
Pretty much. The sources also highlight using the demonic power of words to sow confusion.
Demonic power. Sounds intense.
Well, think of D'Annunzio's hypnotic voice and his alliterative phrases. They offered praise, but never anything concrete. It left women pondering feelings, not facts. Similarly, de Gaulle used vague, emotional references like, "I have understood you," to make crowds hear exactly what they wanted to hear. Words creating feeling over logic.
Paying meticulous attention to detail is also crucial in this phase, isn't it?
Absolutely. Filling their senses with little rituals, colorful objects, thoughtful, personalized gifts, all designed to distract and mesmerize, subtly masking the manipulation. The Empress Dowager of China, for example, orchestrated these meticulously detailed banquets that just overwhelmed Western diplomats' wives with sheer spectacle, and dressing specifically for the target, like Cleopatra, embodying a Greek goddess for Antony, or Pompadour constantly changing styles for Louis XV. It works wonders.
Yeah.
Shows deep, specific attention.
Making them feel seen, but maybe for the wrong reasons.
Perhaps. Another technique is to poeticize your presence. Maintain a degree of mystery and distance, so that in your absence, the target becomes obsessed with you.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder, or more obsessed.
Exactly. It aligns with Stendhal's second crystallization theory. Distance and uncertainty make our imaginations work harder, leading us to idealize the object of our affection, like the Duc de Lausanne with Grande Mademoiselle abscess-fueled obsession.
And paradoxically, you can also disarm through strategic weakness and vulnerability. How does that work?
By making the other person feel stronger or more in control, play the victim of circumstances or even of their own power. Valmont, the master manipulator from Les Liaisons Dangereuses, positioned himself as Tourvelle's victim to elicit her pity and draw her in.
Playing the victim.
Or think of Benjamin Disraeli's first speech in Parliament. He pushed through intense heckling, making himself appear a victim of a cruel and unreasonable faction. Dramatically gained public sympathy that way.
Clever maneuvering. And then there's confusing desire and reality, making them live a fantasy.
Yes, subtly make victims feel they are living a fantasy. Offer only a part of that fantasy, just enough to keep them coming back for more. Potemkin, for instance, made Catherine the Great's grand dreams come true by constructing elaborate Potemkin villages, even staging an army for Joseph II, made her feel like her fantasies were real.
That's quite the production.
It is. Similarly, the Chinese opera singer Peipu's Seduction of a French Diplomat involved planting ideas of gender impersonation, making his victim believe a truly elaborate, almost unbelievable fantasy.
Isolation is another tool mentioned.
A powerful one. Gently lure victims away from their familiar world, their support systems, into your own exotic one. Xi, the legendary Chinese beauty, drew the king of Wu away from his court with a whiff of the exotic, the promise of new pleasures, made him gradually weaker and more susceptible in her world.
Taking them out of their element.
Exactly. And as the tension builds, you gradually arouse through physical touch, subtly heightening sensation with seemingly accidental contact modulated voices.
Getting closer.
Right. The sources describe Madame de Lucy's approach to Melchior. Her revealing gown, tousled hair, heated glances, trembling voice, closeness, tears, it all collectively overwhelmed him, leading to the decisive moment, a sensory overload.
And finally, when the target clearly desires you, but maybe won't admit it, the bold move.
That's the culmination. Master the art of the bold move. The sources advise to throw aside chivalry, kindness, and coquetry and simply overwhelm them. Don't hesitate. Don't meet them halfway.
No hesitation.
Think of Napoleon's legendary return from Elba. A bold, surprising gesture, daring his former soldiers to fire. Pure, overwhelming theater. Valmont, sensing Torvel was ready when she took his arms, struck quickly. Even Don Juan made bold, unexpected moves with Cristeta, overwhelming her resistance. It's about seizing the moment with unwavering confidence.
Wow. Okay. This deep dive really reveals that seduction is, well, it's far more than superficial charm or simple attraction, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's an intricate dance of profound psychological understanding, masterful performance, and a deep, almost intuitive awareness of human desire.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture,
It underscores how deeply we are all influenced by our unmet needs, our fantasies, the subtle cues of those around us. It's not just about romantic pursuits. It's really a blueprint for understanding influence in general.
so what does this all mean for you listening? It means that understanding these dynamics isn't just for, historical analysis or fictional plots.
Right.
It's about recognizing the pervasive power of influence in your own life, how you are persuaded, and how you might perhaps unconsciously persuade others.
Mhm.
The sources highlight that people are often dying to be overwhelmed, to let go of their usual stubbornness, and that sometimes resistance is merely a plea, a sign that they want to be led.
Which raises an important question, I think. What does it mean if, as the sources suggest, our resistance to being overwhelmed or our desire for escape might actually be a quiet plea? Please seduce me. What deeper, perhaps unspoken longings might be at play when we find ourselves drawn into someone's orbit, whether that's in a high-stakes meeting or a powerful political rally or just a simple personal encounter?
That is definitely something to mull over. Until our next deep dive.